Hello and welcome. This is my sort of attempt to um, be a authentic human with other people, with my whoever watches any of my videos. Honestly, whatever. Uh, so I have always kind of been a writer, I guess, more than anything else, like in terms of what I'm occupied by. I mean, I've had occupations, I've worked at places and stuff. This suit or the shirt and vest that I'm wearing, I got because I worked at Men's Warehouse, which wasn't a terrible, job. It's good to be able to get nice clothes and everything. Uh, but that's not I didn't identify as, I don't know. I feel compassion for people who, I mean, to some people, it may not even be, a big deal or a bad thing to be identifying themselves as like working in that environment, but I couldn't. And the coronavirus or, the COVID happened, and basically that I got laid off from that job, and I've been living on the government dole ever since. Although I've been doing, keeping me occupied with other things, um, I don't really have a desire to enter into the workforce either, because a lot of these jobs are like you have to wear masks, and I'm not about wearing masks because that's just like so unnecessary, honestly. Um, that I don't, and then like I applied for a job. I didn't know what it was, and then they describe it, and it's basically the guy who uses the thermometer on people's heads as they enter this building. And I'm like, I can't do that, dude. I literally, what? That's the job. That's the entirety of the job, is just screening people for their temperature, and like you have to sign some shit when you enter. Like, holy hell, man, really? Like, do you agree that if you are going to enter, that you have not been you have not had any of these symptoms for the past 2 weeks? Or, it's like, dude, uh, uh and if that's going to be the new normal, then I'm just not going to participate in society and shrivel up into a ball or whatever. I mean, that's not really an option for me. I kind of have to do something, obviously, make some kind of money somehow. The dole isn't exactly going to last forever, but and I realize that it's a fucked up way to live, and I can't imagine I'm the only person in this scenario. Uh, I even have a daughter, for Christ's sake, that I take care of. I'm not like the sole arbiter of her. She has a mother and everything that she's with a good portion of the time, but um, the world that she's growing up into, and hell, I knew that that was going to be the case. Basically, is kind of why I was really worried about it when she was first born. Is the fact that, like, you know the older people know, they recognize it. My stepdad, who died a few years ago, was when he could talk. He died of ALS and couldn't talk towards the end or anything. Uh, he was glad. He said, "Man, I'm glad I'm not going to be seeing. I'm going to die before any of this shit really comes to pass." He was right. He was one of the good ones. Honestly, he was one of the good men uh, in the world. He was a trucker. He was a simple person, and knowing him and loving him as a person did a lot for me as a person, because I realized that the redneck sort of hillbilly, or not hillbilly, he wasn't really hillbilly, but the redneck sort of culture, and that people who were, uh, you know, uh, I saw them as ignorant Christian types, and the rest of that. I can love those people. I'm capable, and I know that, I already know that the people who are woke liberal types, like, their heart is kind of in the right place, but their mind isn't. And it's just unfortunate. I have so many people that have disowned me as a friend because of various things. Honestly, some of it's just lack of contact. But others, it's because of the fact that, well, some of it is kind of lack of content of character on their part. I'm not going to reach out to people that haven't got anything, to say, or aren't fascinated, or wondering about the world in which we live. And I'm also not interested in having relationships with people who aren't aware of the reality that we're living in. I think a lot of the problems that I've had has been the fact that I'll open my mouth talking truth or saying something that people are literally they don't know anything about it, but their emotional response is so intense. And the reason being, more often than not, they're members of some kind of cult, and they're just a zombie mindlessly wandering in this "I believe what I've been told" kind of uh, reality that honestly I can't identify with. You have people that just back whoever is popular according to their echo chamber or their tribalistic group. And I mean, honestly, it's just not. That's not me. That's not my uh, sort of. I can't identify with that. And I used to be in the liberal set because I knew people from. I live in Maryland. I knew people in Baltimore who were very gung ho about all and I was right there with them, hippy dippy sort of, love is all you need kind of stuff. And it's to a certain degree that's true, but it's you can't just uh, have parades or whatever about love and kindness and expect that to do anything. Um, Sad but true, and free love was attempted back in the 60s and it failed because all it was a bunch of fucking, you know, and free love without any kind of sense of responsibility or a desire to create family is completely hollow. It's hollow. It's hollow love. It doesn't mean anything. It's pointless. It's sad, really, ultimately. And I know plenty of people who are ultra, liberal types or even sort of radical libertarian types that uh, they don't have a desire to have family. They have polyamorous relationships and they're totally unhappy. Totally unhappy. They come to me because I have um, things to say, maybe insights, but they don't do anything about their problems because they can't, because they're attached to this idea of this relationship that they're in. So it's really more of a prison than it is a liberation. Like sexual liberation is actually more of a prison than it is a form of freedom. Unfortunately, that's the reality. A lot of the times we think of things as the free love and these kinds of ideals as though there's something more than just a trap, and ultimately that's what they are. You're not going to be happy simply because you're having lots of sex, and sex is not the key to happiness. But anyway, my humanity. So I started out as a poet, writing, and eventually, as time went on, it became more prose. By the time I reached like high school, the poetry started getting longer and more stream of consciousness from reading, I think, Jack Kerouac. Jack Kerouac kind of inspired me to write in prose, and because it was still poetic, but it wasn't something where I needed meter or any of those kind of things like classical poetry. But I eventually that led me into I was always interested in psychology, and that's what I went to. That's what I like kind of majored in high school and into college. I didn't graduate from college because I didn't want to participate in that process anymore, really. College just seemed like high school 2.0. I went to a community college. I didn't have the money to go to like a prestigious college. My family propped up my older brother into a much more, a prestigious college. He graduated from that and squandered it. Didn't really use it. Now he's married with a woman who's considerably older than him and lives in Florida and ended up in the military anyway, which is like, sorry, bro. I just don't understand what the fuck you're doing. But hey, you could say the same thing about me, so fair enough. I don't necessarily know what the fuck I'm doing, and I don't think that that's it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. My hope is that what I'm doing is sharing ideas or making some kind of an attempt to reach out to humanity, and to do so with the purpose of preventing really, the dystopic utopian future of the world intellectual elite into a, you know, their paradise and our prison, basically. Uh, but I digress. So I went for psychology and English, basically. Those are the two. I went for a dual major when I was in college. Uh, but then eventually it just led into philosophy. I was started from sort of poetry to psychology to, and I'll admit the first portion of my psychology interest was in consciousness, so that kind of led me to spiritual philosophy more so than conventional, classical, or any other kind of philosophy. So my origin is in the art of language and in the wonder of the mind. And that has led me to kind of educate myself in various matters that I've become more and more interested in because of their integral relationship with one another. And so I ended up writing a book that has to do with the metaphysics of human life, and then also the imperative nature of the three primary colors of civilization, which I call, or I mean, that I would say are economics, education, and ethics. The three E's. The threes. These subjects I became much more interested in and sort of devoted a lot of my time to. And I lived a life of, I lived with family, so I didn't have to pay to live at a place, but I didn't have money really coming in. I mean, I was working at, kind of the local supermarket and all these other kind of things. It's a very humble life. I haven't really been, I never got money from my family. I never really had a car or anything like that even. And then I relied a lot on the kindness of strangers and friends to get me to places that they wanted me to be at, they wanted me to be there, because at a certain point when you educate yourself and you become somebody who has something to say, people want to hear what you have to say, especially if what you have to say is valid. And I've met plenty of people that tell me that, yeah, man, you're really smart, or you really have a lot of things to say, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. And from that, I gained a certain amount of confidence in what I had to say, to the point where um, I don't really view it as an ego thing, and I mean it is a part of my sense of identity. So in a sense, it is a part of my ego, but I don't think that I have allowed that, and maybe I have, and maybe I'm just unaware of it, but I don't think that I've allowed it to affect my ability to relate to other people. Um, I think to a certain extent, because of the irregularity of my life course and of the subject matter with which I have devoted my time and life to, that um, it certainly would seem that I'm pompous, or that I'm full of myself. Uh, but the reality is, I just have confidence in what I have to say, because what I have to say has been said by so many other people in various ways throughout history, that it isn't something new, really, to in a large degree. I've expanded certain old ideas. Honestly, that's my greatest contribution, is just expanding different ideas, namely like the trivium and quadrivium and stuff like that. These different ideas, like the classical liberal arts, to expand them to adapt to the modern world that we live in today. Because there's a huge imperative that we learn how to be ourselves, who we are. Like, humanity has become so detached from the human organism and to the human life, that we don't, at least I don't see very much humanity. You see humanities in small groups, but there isn't much respect or love for other human beings in a deeper sense in our society. And I think that that's grounds for concern. And the solution to that, I believe, is basically educating ourselves. And like Socrates or his students said, it's like ignorance is the only true evil in the world, and knowledge is the only true good. Um, the only way that we're gonna cure the zombie epidemic or the zombie pandemic, the zombie world, the world of mindless tribal zealots that just follow these cult-like organizations and parrot off whatever they've been told by whoever they've been told by, is to make educating yourself as popular, if not more, than uh, I guess like things like social media and porn. Um, there's a lot of people who are older that say that we're fucked, man, and they would know. They, the older intellectuals, people like Thomas Sowell. I mean, Thomas Sowell. You listen to his concerns about the future, and they're pretty fucking dire, man. They're pretty dire. They're not. He's not exactly saying that we're headed towards a new renaissance. If anything, he's saying we're basically headed towards the collapse of the United States, because of all of these various tribalistic pressures that are being created by, really artificially, by the financial interests that would like to see this country be turned into a communist system. Anyway, I'm starting to go off on another tangent. I don't really think that this is necessarily something that people would get value out of, this conversation, or this sort of rant, but I just wanted to communicate like a part of my life, like, and my goal ultimately. I would like to be a teacher of some kind, not one that requires a diploma from some university. I think that that's kind of an absurd, restrictive requirement for somebody to be able to have uh, a point of view, or things to say that have value. It's really unfortunate that that's become like, if if you're not a philosopher unless you have a degree, then philosophy itself is dead. Like, where did philosophy come from before we had universities? It came from the wonder and the curiosity, the bewilderment. Like, wisdom comes from realizing that you don't know anything. You don't know anything about life. You don't know anything about the world we live in. And that is what spurs the desire to learn, the love of wisdom, philosophy. If you're getting it from a degree, if you're going to a university and getting what you claim to be philosophy, or claim as a philosopher from someone else, from a university, from an institution, you're far from being a philosopher. You're literally just you've read some books, man, and you've repeated some quotations. That's not being a philosopher. That's completely preposterous. I can't understand how that's acceptable. Um, like, I was a philosophy major. It's like, yeah, well, good for you. I'm a philosopher. Okay? Like, there's a fundamental difference between having a philosophy degree from some university and actually being a philosopher. So, anyway, maybe I hope this is some, helps with whoever is watching any of my videos to kind of build a sense of trust, or a sense of, like, I've said this before, I'm nobody and I know nothing. I just have some ideas. That's it. This video went a little bit longer than I thought it would, but anyway, I guess that's it. Bye.